let people respond to it. You try to censor people's comments.
Was there a lawsuit against Trump for like blocking people?
Yes, if you're in office, you can't do it.
Oh, but you can limit their.
If you're out of office,
you can limit their replies.
So they've actually just basically they've given the solution to the whole thing, in my opinion. And I really don't know what the complications are with RFK, with his case against YouTube. What Jimmy Dore has just said then, or just, reminded us of, is the fact that I've actually used this as well. When a local councillor blocks you so you can't contact them, when they are responsible, they've got responsibilities, they've got to be able. That means, because this is government, they've got functions to do for us, so they can't block you. If you break the law, then surely they're from the police, but they can't block you because it's a required function. But the thing is, what is that function? Well, it is, we elect them to work for us in the council and provide services. But that same, when they are there in office or in service, the thing is, when you contact them, when they've just admitted that you've got to be able to contact them, what are you doing? You're sending an information. You are sending an information. You are trying an information. You are submitting an information to the council authority, which it is the council chamber, but, or government, parliament, or in that case, the White House, Trump, right? Now, what is the information that you submit or send? Well, it can be just an information about your bins being emptied or whatever for public services that we pay for, but also petitions and, referendums, elections, also complaints to monitoring officer or whatever. That's the information we're sending into government, which is your petition to the government. And this is it. Why have they got to be open to receive it? Because you've got the right to send it. Now, they've just said that they can't block the sending of the information, right? That's the whole thing. Because it is the same thing, not different from what we're talking about when we're having this political rights and what we're doing. That is the process. That is the action. It's not actually about them. It's the fact that we voted them in, and then we are sending in instructions or notices, which we've got a right to do. Now, the thing is, I've been having some problems on Signal. They're doing a big petition in Atlanta, right, for a referendum, and there's actually a prosecutor from Atlanta who's been organising it all, and she got a court order from a judge saying that you don't actually have to be a registered Atlanta voter to collect the signatures. You can help as long as the signatures that you collect are Atlanta voters, right? Registered voters in Atlanta. Anyone can help, but anyone who's got an interest in it, or there's nothing, if you want to pay for an advert or, make some signs for them or whatever, it's voluntary work, So there are lots of things you can do if you don't even live in Atlanta, and she said that anyone can help and join in. Now, there's been some people throwing people out of the groups, right? This is the model, right? Another insight about the whole YouTube model, or the whole website model. I've just done an entire video on, the difference between public and private, whether you're in private or in public. But the thing is, the website, any chat group, anything, right, it exists in a device or on a system, right? But if you are when you're on YouTube, you're publishing it to that device or publishing it to that system, right? And they publish it like a newspaper or a magazine. YouTube's basically free ads, because you don't have to pay for a channel. and it's free. Well, you can pay for ads or you can upload free ads. That's what it is. And it's public access. It's not a private website. It's never been private. It's privately owned. It's not private access. Now, the thing is, with these signal groups, though, the messages and the communications and the sharing of the information about the petition and the organising of the petition and activities declared for behalf of the petition are on there. But you've got these ads who are booting people off and throwing people off. Now, if you watch that misinformation video on YouTube, it's all about using a website or using YouTube to intervene in, disrupt or mislead a democratic process. They say elections, but it means referendums and petitions. And this is a petition for a referendum. And they're actually running it all through the books. They're making everyone do things like really stringent rules. So it's actually even more stringent than you would even go down to the polling station and, tick a box in a card. They're making them check everything thoroughly and get all the signatures. It's a legitimate democratic process. Now, there's some of these admins who don't really understand rights properly and so forth. The fallacy is that all these websites and all these platforms are built almost like standardized, and they don't account for political rights because they kind of YouTube are trying to claim that, it's different, it's private. You don't have to have political rights on there. Of course you do. Now, the thing is, right, the control buttons, the input for example, the signal chats and so forth, all the writing and so forth is recorded on the Signal app, but how you control that writing and how you are effectively controlling other people's access to it to be able to read it, make use of it, and communicate through it, right? It's just a means of communication. Now, the thing is that you're sat in your house, right, at one end, and someone else is sat in their house at another end, and there might be people on the streets, walking around getting signatures. And it comes down to this. I don't think it actually matters about the website or the app or anything, because according to YouTube, you can't use the device. It doesn't actually matter if they publish it or not. They're saying you can't use a device or use YouTube a platform, basically use a device or a gadget to intervene in or disrupt their claiming political process. Now, I don't know whether or not you can be prosecuted for that, because apparently in the right to petition, you can't be prosecuted. This is the whole thing with Trump's cases. But at the least, even if you can't be prosecuted, it says you can't use it to intervene or disrupt in it, right? So that would mean that even if the person who was disrupting it, I don't necessarily think that you could be prosecuted criminally. Maybe you could sort of, be fined or sued. I'm not sure about fines, but at least the very, very bottom line on it is that there's no authority or person or platforms that are making any effort to unblock or remove obstructions that are either discriminative or taking your rights away. They only seem to have buttons that block or ban. The platforms they will not engage in anything that goes the other way. The thing is with this whole issue, it's when people don't have a right to intervene or block you or misdirect you or whatever, and there is nothing to actually prevent people from misusing these apps, basically. And there's nothing you can't really go to the platform owners and say, someone blocked me, but they don't have the right to do that. So you have to unblock it. It's like on YouTube, everything's, take down or fine or charge. They've been steering away from any acknowledgement that anything has got a right to do something, mainly because it's privately owned. But the fact is they should care about that and they should be bothered about that. But because it's not their petition or not their campaign, They haven't actually cared. In fact, the major parties who've been guiding and directing the platforms have liked it because it lets everyone fight and argue over each other, while the political parties don't give a monkeys because, they want people to vote for the political parties. They don't really want people to be doing these campaigns and actions, these independent ones, really. So if you're going to go by this 5013C, illegal campaign intervention for non-profits, and these petitions aren't for profit, when you go around and collecting signatures, it's definitely not for profit and it's not private business. So it is non-profit. It has to be tax exempt as well. It's got to be. That's the illegal campaign intervention, and this is what YouTube call it, campaign election misinformation, but that's a total bending of the words to try and bend your mind around into this thing that you can't say what you want in politics because it's misinformation when you can. You can. It would be almost like, if you a statement, it would be like YouTube, like disallowing the statement to be submitted and heard by a jury. When you got to try the statement, it's almost like you're going up to the box in a court effectively, and you're about to speak, and you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth. Well, you're saying you're gonna, but what happens if you start talking and it's not true? But the thing is, what YouTube are kind of wanting to do with the democratic process, which takes place outside of the government buildings, outside of the courtroom, so to say, they're trying to stop you from making that statement for people from hearing it. So the same how that plays out in a courtroom, if you went by what the government really are planning or want to do, is that you wouldn't be able to make the statement, say it, or write it. They want to prevent that. They don't want it to be voiced, and you try the information, this is what I'm saying happened, and then the jury decide. And the jury is the people, remember, it's not the corporation, the entity, the group, Bill Gates, or the WHO. It's meant to be the public, the jury. So what they really want to do is stop the witness from giving their opinion and their statement, whether it's true or not, and letting the ears of the jury hear it. And we know for certain in a petition campaign, it is an official, archaic judicial process, and it is a different slight order and format to a criminal or civil proceeding, because you go to the jury first, you get your evidence, you go to the jury first, and you ask people to support it. And then when you've got a very large number, which shows how many people support it in favour or against, then it is debated by our elected representatives, or we can override them with the entire referendum, the jury. Now, in order for the referendum and jury to make a decision and vote for it, they have to hear it with their ears. Now, if it's been censored, it can't get to their ears, and they can't decide, but they can override the actual ministers in the chamber. This is it. And effectively, Bill Gates is he's a creator. And with creators, we can create things, but then there's always a bigger creator who created the platform, and you can create what you want, but it's my platform, and I can kick you off because I'm the bigger creator. And then there's a bigger fish and a bigger fish. But the bigger fish in democracy is the entire referendum of the country, who must hear something and make a decision, but they don't want it to be heard. So the thing with the statement is, if YouTube was a court, what they're trying to do is they're trying to say that, you can't actually submit the statement. Or someone is screening or vetting your statement to say whether you can make it or not. That goes beyond having the right to remain silent, and anything you say or could say, anything you fail to mention now or mention at a later date can be relied upon in court. Now, if they are preventing your words from coming out from your opinion, this would break Rishi Sunak's brain. This Rishi Sunak, Priti Patel, Sola Braverman, Matt Hancock, Theresa May, their brains break with this. It's like getting them to do complicated maths. They can't do it because they aren't that intelligent. They don't have any qualifications. Like, Professor Tim Wilson says, anyone can get elected. They don't actually know what they're doing properly. Because the fundamental principle in reality, the actual fundamental events that are real and true of process, which they are refusing to acknowledge and recognize in the comparative basis of what is actually going on and happening, is that if they prevent you from speaking, if the jury decides the statement's truth or falsity under the guidance and observation of the judge. Now that's facilitated. Now you have a right to remain silent, but you do have a right to remain silent, but they want you to talk and they want you to speak. And anything you fail to mention or anything you do say, whatever, can be relied later upon you in a court of law. Well, it cannot be relied upon later in a court of law if they don't let you speak and if they don't listen. Now, this is the thing. If you tell a lie, they want you to lie. Because then once you've lied through your lips and they write it down and anything you say can be relied upon, then they will use it in evidence against you. Or for or against. But if you're prevented from it coming out of your mouth, it can't be relied upon. So if YouTube's basis of what they're trying to push now was put into effect around the country, you could never get prosecuted, because if you said something that was true, it wouldn't get published or submitted or even accepted. So there would be no statements existing in the court to be read out to the jury that were false, because they wouldn't allow them. So they couldn't convict you, because they offered no evidence. They would offer no evidence, none. Now that is why these ministers haven't got any intelligence at all. They think that they're clever. And this is where Bill Gates, Minesweeper, he thinks that he's a world-leading computer mathematician who can calculate anything with his supercomputers, but he ain't calculated that, and he is wrong. Because you've got the right to not speak, but they are trying to now say that you haven't got the right to speak, when you actually are compelled to speak for good or bad, for truth or falsity. You are compelled to come out with something. And they aren't the judge, the jury is. And that is where Gates, the American computer software developer's logic with all his contacts around this world breaks and fails. And I'll challenge Bill Gates now. He can't do it, and that is treason. What he is planning and what he's trying to do is treason against the people. And all we've got is Trump in court. Why is Bill Gates not in court for treason through the WHO? And that is it. And on your computer system, it's the person who enters the information into the system. On all of YouTube's claims and policy, they're putting it down to the person who enters the information in the system or presses the command. If you press a command, you are responsible for that command. So if you are in a group and that group's purpose, the other people that you are interacting with and affecting, regardless of who owns the platform that it goes through, the people at the other side who you're affecting, if you make an action that obstructs, misleads, or disrupts or fails the political process, including blocking access to information about it and so forth, you are intervening in that other person's actions. And that is why it doesn't matter whether YouTube's private or not. It does not matter who owns Signal or who owns YouTube. The fact is that it is merely a device. And that is the difference. And that is how YouTube, they've got out of, we're third party. We're not responsible. Well, actually, they're actioning quite a lot of things. They're not responsible for we upload, but actually when it is political material that we're uploading that affects another person at another computer and YouTube intervene in it, and it's for that purpose, it doesn't matter whether it is on their platform or not. Actually, what matters is that there was a person somewhere who sent something and it was meant to go to another person through a political process and somehow it didn't get there. And that is the intervention in the political process. And what they're trying to say is that medium you're using, it's private. But it's not private. Because if it's private, you won't be allowed to look at it or see it like someone's private house. But you can, because anyone can. And you won't be able to go on there, but anyone can have an account. So it's not private. It's almost like BT or the telephone company. If you could imagine when you used to pay your telephone bills with BT or British Telecom, can you imagine picking the phone up and then dialing a number, and as soon as you start speaking to somebody about something, then the phone would go dead. Now, what about when you're in court and you've got a live video feed on court, right, through Zoom or whatever? They've got their own system, their own government system for courts, but it's still, that's the public system, isn't it? But, it could be Zoom or YouTube or whatever. In fact, they're uploading Parliament videos onto YouTube anyway, live Parliament videos. If you're giving evidence in a court case, what are they saying? That if what you're saying and giving evidence is not true, then they're gonna, hang up. And that's the problem with what David Cameron did when he sold off all of the services, or the majority of them, to these private companies, saying it was going to be competitive. They didn't take into account the rights because they don't want us to have them. Because that's not competitive. They're not competitively, with the political campaigns. They're actually competing to try and take us off there. Say we can't do this and that unless it's true. They aren't the judges. This is the thing. What is the police? I'm starting to think that they're going to have their own medical units now, which they kind of want to do. This is what Bezos wants to do. He wants to own the NHS and have it like Amazon with all his medical information. They want to be the medical rights. Never mind being in court and having the right of an ambulance turning up. You had Jeff Bezos turning up and coming and giving you an injection or something in the courtroom. This is it. So, so that is the equation. And actually, it's all about you. It's about you. It's not about if you're in a private house or out of a private house, or it doesn't matter where you are in physical space or whose property you're on. It's like the laws for punching and kicking and biting or whatever, or picking something up and put it in your pocket. It doesn't matter if you're in your private house and you pick something up and put it in your pocket, or if you're outside in the middle of the street and you find something and put it in your pocket, or wherever. It's about your action. And that's the thing that makes it not illegal, so you can't be prosecuted. Now, as for whether someone wants to remove you or not and so forth, maybe they could remove you from their house. But if you take into account that it's a communication that you're sending to another person, any other citizen, and you've got the right to do it. If that person intervenes or obstructs in it, then they are actually breaking the law. According to YouTube, it's misusing either a device. But that's the thing, you don't need to misuse a device. You could say that if you're speaking to someone called, Lorraine, and and a man called John, and you're speaking, through a door, And then you could say that the guy who owns the house, but everyone's a guest in his house. It's only John's house. If John slams the door on you while you're talking to another person, it doesn't matter whether if she's stood in the house and you're stood outside and you're speaking about a political matter, right? Or to get a signature, and then the guy whose house owns the house, even if the other girl's in his house and she's not got a problem with you, and he closes the door on you, it's his house, he can shut the door if he wants and you're outside it. But he closed the door on you and the other party, and he blocked your communication between each other from shutting his door. And that's where Neil Mohan is with all this. And that is the same as BT. And this is where these maverick, David Cameron, Tony Blair, bright young team, wow, London, top floor, the brightest people on planet Earth, but they always miss the point because they're trying to do what they want to do for money, and their success without taking into consideration other people's thoughts and feelings and the law. Yet they're always claiming more and more law, more and more rights. No, you can't say this, you can't insult this, you can't do that, you can't do that. This is brilliant, Rishi Sunak. No one can do anything wrong to Rishi Sunak now. But yet, when I go on the group, I'm having everything done wrong to me. I'm being kicked out for nothing. And then I complain to the person who kicked me out when I haven't done anything wrong. Then she says that I'm harassing her. Literally, I do nothing wrong. They're giving buttons to chuck me off. It hasn't made life better. Rishi Sunak's racism, religion, discrimination laws have done nothing. They've actually made life impossible because now people are just absolutely dominating us. They're bossing us. And I can't do a thing to stop it. There's no one to do anything. Rishi Sunak has not made anything bad for us. What he's done is created bosses. And no one is there to actually stop them. And then when you say to them, stop, then they say you're harassing them. He's literally made it into a nightmare. He's made the most absolutely something and nothing at all. Go on a group, right? Even just look at it. Someone looks at your phone number and doesn't even like the numbers. Oh, your numbers look funny. You get thrown out of the group. Why did you throw me out of the group? Oh, your numbers look funny. Now that takes the piss out of being called black. Oh, I don't like the colour of you. Now they don't like your numbers. It's like Rishi Sunak. How much money have you got in your bank account? Oh, 2p. Oh, I don't like those numbers. You're not coming to my party. Oh, now we've got some numbers. I like these numbers. I've heard of racism and sexism, but now they're throwing you out because what your numbers look like. And then when you complain and state law to them, valid legislation that they don't have the right to do it, then they say that you're harassing them. It's like they've been armed. Sunak has armed them. It's like he's got an army now. And there's actually no defence because there is no one in physical, no one on the platforms that's anything about it. They're in another country. You can't get through to their authorities. We're being taken over by an enterprise, and it is of insanity. And they don't have the right to do it. It's treason and illegal.